right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We are live with Brain Talk. Thank you all for so much for tuning in today on this pre-Memorial Day Friday, and thank you to all our armed service men and women out there fighting and protecting our freedoms. We salute you this weekend, and thank you so much for all that you do and all of your sacrifices. All right, guys, so I am Dr. Sam McDonald. Again, thank you so much for tuning into another fantastic episode of Brain Talk. And today I'm very, very excited to introduce not only a friend, but a colleague and a mentor of mine, Dr. Kyle Daigle. So Dr. Kyle Daigle is a doctor of chiropractic and the owner of Ultimate Performance Chiro and Rehab in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Kyle is currently the Chief Medical Officer for SNA Technologies, a software company based out of Austin, Texas, where he has developed a patent-pending program called NeuroSage, which we're going to talk about that later in the show. He also lectures at Life University and across Europe from Barcelona all the way to Amsterdam. And finally, he has partnered with a company in Abu Dhabi called Developing Minds, a learning center for children with developmental delays and sensory processing disorders. Dr. Kyle, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Dr. Sam, for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Memorial Day Friday, got any plans, sir? What are you doing this weekend?
Yeah, I just took my family to Orange Beach for the weekend. We're going to spend the weekend on the beach here.
That's awesome. Get some beach time, man. Definitely jealous of that. But we've got beautiful weather up here in the mountains, so that's awesome. Family time is always important. But hey, man, let's dive in and let's get to know a little bit about you. So, your background. How did you end up as a chiropractor, and then how did you get into functional neurology?
Yeah, so starting in second grade, I knew I was going to be a doctor. If you asked me when I was second grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, it was, I wanted to be a doctor. I fell in love with that at an early age, mainly because my little brother ended up getting meningitis when he was a kid. And I just watched him suffer for 6 weeks in a hospital. And I just remember whenever he came out, my mom and dad just grabbed the doctor and they just held him when he got released. And, I got chills right now, but I just remember standing there, and I was like, you know what, I want to be that guy one day. So science has always been something that really piqued my interest. I was starting to go play college baseball. I was, decent at baseball. And then after a year and a half, I decided, hey, you know what, I really didn't see myself really going that, I didn't see myself going that far. So I really wanted to hit the academics. I went to LSU. Started pursuing a biological science degree, did some extra research, student research assisting, and I got exposed to nutrition. At the time, I was battling really bad asthma and really, really severe ADHD. I was heavily medicated, and I found out about diet and nutrition. So I quit drinking milk, which was pretty interesting, and I was never checked for food sensitivities, although I was checked for food allergies, and I get off drinking milk. And my allergies and everything went away. So I was able to get rid of albuterol pump. My ADHD issues were going down. I was able to focus, and I found that just, crazy that just removing certain foods. So I really kept kind of digging into biochemistry, fell in love with that, and said, hey, you know what? I want to try an alternative route. So I decided to start looking into chiropractic because that's what actually helped my brother with migraines following his coming over meningitis, and it really helped out. So I talked to a couple of chiropractors and said, you know what, I want to go full-fledged into it. So, so I started chiropractic school, and first weekend, there's a guy named Dr. Brandon Brock. I listened to him speak about functional neurology, and I was just blown away. I was like, hey, you know what, if I can just really learn how the body works with vitamins and minerals, and I start understanding this neurological aspect, that's perfect. So that's kind of my, earlier on is that, I see my brother who suffered from, migraines, falling meningitis, get chiropractic treatment, changed his life. And then, personally from a nutritional standpoint, getting off of one food completely gets rid of my asthma. So, I have a personal, about chiropractic, it's pretty personal to see family members and then my own lifestyle living, getting rid of a disorder. So, earlier on, man, just, fell in love with nutrition and neurology.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think every chiropractor that I've met, I think we all have a personal story, a personal connection that really brought us into the profession and something that continues to drive us to push us forward. That's amazing about your brother, and really cool that you really took that in, and that's been a motivating force for you going forward. Where did you do your schooling for chiropractic?
I went to Parker in Dallas, Texas, and then I immediately, I did a little bit of the functional neurology seminars. Actually, did all the functional neurology seminars with T. Scarazi and Brandon Brock, and then now, I get the opportunity to lecture with Dr. Robert Melillo over childhood development disorders. So Parker for chiropractic school, postgraduate. I've done a lot of stuff with functional medicine. I studied a lot, behind the T. Scarazian. Just kind of mixing, postgraduate with functional neurology and functional medicine.
Definitely got the credentials behind you there. Let me ask, because I've brought up Dr. Melillo a couple of times on the show. We've talked a little bit about functional disconnection, but can you give our audience just an explanation into Dr. Melillo's work? Because I know that's something you use a lot in your practice. Talk about primitive reflexes, talk about whole functional disconnection. Can you give our audience a good lecture on that?
Yeah, so Dr. Melillo, he's, I started Neurostage, our computer software program, kind of behind this doctor's work. And so he published a book, layman terms book, best book in the world you can read as a parent if you have a kid with ADHD or any type of sensory disorders, your kid's possibly on the spectrum, or your kid, nonverbal, really bad behavior problems, chronic infections can get better. He really talks about that, that there could be a developmental issue going on. And that developmental issue is just that, kids earlier on, they could, late walker, late talker. These kids don't typically respond very well. Typically, parents can say that these kids are really slow, or even some of these kids just really excel, like they don't even walk, they don't even crawl, they just start walking. And, you have these milestones set for a reason, and these milestones are set for brain development. Well, what's happening is, in my opinion, and even from Dr. Melillo's research, is that there's this stuff called primitive reflex. These reflexes that, you should actually have, for example, like a rooting reflex, which is how kids latch on to breastfeeding, or the palmar reflex, which actually helps out with grasping. And then as that goes away, you'll start seeing kids start to speak. So he found during 20-something years of research that these kids actually have these retained primitive reflexes. And then you can actually integrate these reflexes by doing certain type of exercises. And that's kind of the foundation. You have another stage after that, which is getting into like posture reflexes and then core. And then he also really talks about this whole thing called functional disconnection, which is where, pathology, you shoot an MRI of these kids or a CT scan, everything's normal. But yet, you still see maybe be really impulsive, or this kid's having really bad academic issues. And that he put in there that, if you want to stimulate one side of the brain, for example, the left side of the brain, that there's certain types of colors or certain variances of music. There's certain type of exercises that you can do to help improve that part of the brain. And it's cool because it's all non-invasive. So he wrote this book called Disconnected Kids, which if you're a parent out there, strongly urge you read this. I recommend all my parents read this. And then if you're a clinician out there, he wrote a textbook. It's Advancement of Childhood Neurobehavioral Disorders. And this book will give you a migraine because he really breaks down the entire brain from, different aspects of, why we should go through these reflexes, and these reflexes should integrate all the way to the very end, where he talks about food sensitivity and gastrointestinal issues and methylation issues and all these other issues that, certain doctors can, be really good at. Sometimes you got to encompass the whole thing. And he really harps on primitive reflex integration. So yeah, that'd be probably a little explanation of Dr. Melillo.
Love it. Yeah, definitely been a big influence for our work as well, with not only the primitive reflexes, but again, the functional disconnection piece, and how we always talk about building better brains. And something that I picked up from you, visiting with you, was every time somebody leaves the office, they're going to leave with a better brain. That's just always going to happen. So for you, with this background in functional medicine and functional neurology, so what kind of clients do you see? What have been some of the most challenging cases for you, and also probably some of the most rewarding?
Okay, yeah, I'd say this. People ask me this, I see it all. I see everything from pediatrics. I'll see a kid that comes out of, having a brachial plexus injury, so this kid can come out with paralysis in the hand. I see kids that earlier on that had a stroke within the womb, to just developmental issues, to kids that, battle really bad eczema earlier on, to kids with chronic digestive issues, chronically sick. I do get the opportunity to work with a lot of nonverbal kids. It's pretty neat, but I have a pretty good little population in Europe. People fly and come see me, and so I'd say working with kids. I also get the opportunity to work with professional Olympic athletes, and then all the way into getting into the adult version where I work with people with chronic autoimmune issues, people with really really severe traumatic brain injuries. I typically try to stop. I typically go from birds to about 65, 64, just because I felt like it's a lot easier to work with a younger population. So and then I also work with people with chronic pain. So I see everything from people with phantom limb pain. So these are patients who've had their legs either amputated surgically or in an accident, to people with what's called RSD, regional sympathetic dystrophy, this crazy pain syndrome that really people say that there is really no hope for. So I feel like I get all the challenging cases. So not typically on a daily basis. My caseloads, the ones that say they've seen it, seen it all. They've been to every doctor, had every lab ran, test ran. That's kind of it's pretty stressful. I've had doctors fly and come spend some time with me, and I had one doctor had a panic attack when she was in my office because she told me, she said, the cases that you see is just too severe. I mean, I see people with Batten's disease, so a kid having to wear a helmet because he'll have 120 seizures a day. So I mean, it's pretty intense in my office.
Yeah, it absolutely sounds like it. So how did you get started with working with the nonverbal autistic kids?
Well, I really got started, when I first started, because I was doing things differently than just, traditional doctors and rehab. I started getting cases, because I'm doing something different. The normal stuff didn't work. And, when I started getting more of these kids, I had to start learning more. And that's when I reached out, started studying more Dr. Robert Willow's work. And then really whenever I really fully bought in on this whole primitive reflex integration, and I really shouldn't say bought in, it's just that when I started using these primitive reflexes and checking even adults. I've seen patients with chronic migraines, and I felt like I've done a great job with adjustments to diet, doing some basic eye movements and core work. And again, they were adults, so I never really checked them for primitive reflexes. And then I checked them for what's called like an ATNR. So I get them on their hands and their knees, turn their head left and right, and I'll see the elbow bend. And I'm like, wow. And then we work on integrating that reflex by doing certain exercises, and now that person's migraines completely go away. And so when I started seeing stuff like that and getting results, and then what was kind of the biggest aha moment for me was, I had this little kid who was nonverbal following a brain injury. And just literally, once integrating these reflexes in 2 weeks, we got this kid to actually start verbalizing and speaking. And that was, crazy awesome, and probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are both parents, and thankfully parents to healthy children, but having a child that doesn't talk, I mean, you can only imagine how hard that's going to be. And yeah, that moment where you get to hear your child speak for the first time after, I don't know how many years that child was, but that's got to be one of those moments where just the air leaves the room.
Yeah, well, it is, and this is for for anyone who's listening into this, and if you have a kid that's either had a brain injury, or you have a kid that's nonverbal, or your kid's 3 and he's still not speaking, I just strongly encourage you to find a doctor out there that can assess them for all primitive reflexes. And I mean all of them. And one of the ones I like is called the Rui reflex. So it's on the cheek and the palm of the hand. What you do is they'll stroke and see if the hand curls up or moves. And then there's ATNR. And again, all of them are important, but those are big ones right there that I find. And again, it's pretty consistent. So far, every kid that I work with that's nonverbal, they all have these, as well as a host of the other stuff like gut issues and detoxification issues, methylation issues. But I'm telling you, I just feel that integrating these reflexes makes a world of difference. I mean, again, as a parent, I would do anything for my kid. And when I see these kids that come in, and I just feel for them, because it's just not being able to communicate is very frustrating and challenging.
Yeah, definitely. I remember my kid being less than 1, and some of those frustrations coming out. He couldn't talk yet. You knew he wanted something, we just didn't know what it was. But yeah, I couldn't imagine being 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however old, and yeah, you just can't communicate your basic needs of what you're wanting. So you mentioned also, because we have a lot of armed forces listeners that tune in either from places around the world, but you mentioned not only phantom limb pain, but also RSD. So can you talk about that? Because these are people that struggle with severe pain syndromes. What do you do for those kind of people?
Yeah, well, virtual reality, there's a lot of really cool research over, virtual reality and, phantom limb pain. And so what happens is what we can do in a patient who's got really, severe pain like RSD. So RSD is it's called regional sympathetic dystrophy, but what can happen is the brain really focuses on a certain area, for example, like your foot or your hip or your knee or your shoulder. Sometimes this could be following surgery. Sometimes it could just be that, someone stepped on your foot and then you just never fully really recovered. So the extremity will turn like really red. It'll get really hot. Temperature changes when it goes from hot to cold, barometric pressure, and this pain is super hard to regulate. So people eventually, go and get, morphine patches. People can get spinal cord stimulators, and they'll do all kinds of whatever they can to try to, get rid of this pain. And we found that by, using certain type of there's a system called the vestibular system, which is the system in your inner ear that controls your balance and your coordination. So if you can work on integrating that, can help out. Visual stimulation, say for example, you have like really, really bad pain or you can't move your foot or your arm, that sometimes if you put someone in a certain canal position with their head, that it can actually help alleviate their pain, or certain visual stimulation or even sound, music therapy. So, I developed co-developed a software program called NeuroSage, which uses, all this sensory stimulation. But yeah, it's pretty neat that there's other things that you can do from an alternative standpoint by using specific sensory stimulation to help, reduce this pain and discomfort that you may be having.
Yeah, big time. We have several military bases here in Colorado, with one down in Colorado Springs. We've got the Air Force Base in Aurora, and I'm sure your experience is similar to mine, but the veterans that I've worked with coming from the VA, the care that they get there is not good. Especially for people that have put everything on the line.
Yeah, and another thing too, I've worked with numerous people with, I've got a couple of Navy SEALs and some Army Rangers that I've worked with, and, these guys are physically, you look at these guys and they're so just, strong and jacked up, but they can't even walk a balance beam. And then I find that a lot of these guys have had all these blast injuries that they typically do have these primitive reflexes that come back. So you got to work on integrating those. And sometimes that's what's still, keeping them where they're at. And then there's this really cool thing out there called EDMR therapy, which is where you can start doing like horizontal eye movements for people with PTSD. So, and you can talk to some of these guys and they're like, no, man, I just, I just got tired of, just taking a bunch of medications. And again, that's understandable, but there's always, in my opinion, when you start really looking, you can always find stuff neurologically, and you start improving on those small deficits, and the better that you make your brain, the better that your outcomes, your function's going to be.
100% every time, building better brains every single day. So we talked about the NeuroSage. You just brought it up. So what is the NeuroSage? How does it work? What was your inspiration for its creation?
Okay, yes. So NeuroSage is it's a computer software program that I was able to co-develop with a guy named Steve Rivers. It's a precise amount of visual stimulation in the form of colors and certain eye movements, as well as we have specific sounds to help enhance balance and coordination. And again, it was developed behind the work behind Dr. Robert Malilo's concept, the left and the right brain. So he talks about you can use certain sounds, to help activate the left side of the brain, certain colors to help activate the right side of the brain. And so for me, I've been a big fan of his work. And I wanted to just take, all this sensory stimulation and put it in the form of a video game or form of entertainment. And, I work with a lot of kids with ADHD, and, a lot of these kids are going to play video games. So if we could create something that would warm these kids up, meaning that they can come in and now we can put them in front of a computer software program, then we put them through our rehab program. So, so NeuroSage is just really developed behind Dr. Malilo's work. And, I just felt that adding a form of entertainment, because you can start doing eye movements and music therapy and stuff like that can get kind of monotonous and boring. But, the form of video games that are, designed to help improve, cognitive function and balance and coordination is kind of where I wanted to go with this.
Yeah, the question I've got from somebody was, when it comes to video games, are you talking like a Grand Theft Auto type video game, or what are we talking in terms of entertainment? What kids or adults are doing?
Yeah, no. So I'm I'm totally against like the whole action games, like the violent video games. That's not something that I typically promote. Actually, I don't promote at all in my practice. But and we have different games where you can develop reward systems. So there's an area of the brain, the left side of the brain, that there's research that shows that they have a higher concentration of dopamine. Okay, so that's going to deal with the brain chemical called neurotransmitter to deal with balance and coordination and focus and attention. So if I start doing lots of vertical eye movements, and then there's certain colors that can drive the left side of the brain, well, then I can enhance functions in that area. So again, you can have a reward system. You can have different types of strategy games. One of my favorite games that I personally used when I was going through recovering from a traumatic brain injury, a game called Rollerball. In Rollerball, you take this little ball and you have to put it through a labyrinth, a little maze, collecting different colors in a timely fashion. And then we put obstacles around the area. So the games are very minimal impact, but they do have reward systems. They're kind of altered. And then the game levels, they do typically increase. And then we got involved in virtual reality, which is where, you put these VR goggles on and you virtually get immersed. And this is really cool because this is where if you have patients with like really, really chronic pain, and you're trying to do range of motion exercises, that you can put these VR goggles on. And we have a game we call it a neurosaver, but it's kind of like Beat Saber. You're playing this game while you're able to do exercises, or someone could stretch your knee out or something like that.
So that's going to be on, is that the upcoming platform that's going to create the virtual reality?
Yeah, Neurostage 4.0. So we just finished 4.0. I'm actually leaving next week, 2 weeks from now. I'm going to Austin, which is where our headquarters is. And we're going to just do the final run through. And then we're hopefully, going to launch it the third week of June is we're going to launch 4.0.
That's going to be exciting. So you talked a little bit about the different colors and stuff that stimulate the brain. What colors stimulate the left brain, and then what colors stimulate the right brain?
Okay, so let's say this. So if I get a kid who comes and sees me, and this little kid has issues with like reading or fine motor skills, I typically like to use the color red. And so red has shown to help stimulate the left side of the brain. And then if I get a kid that, we're having issues with, coordination or behavior problems, or we need to like try to calm someone down, someone's got really bad anxiety, we'll typically use like blue lenses, or we'll use the color blue, which is shown to help enhance the right side of the brain. So those are just two basic colors. And then again, if I want to stimulate the right side of the brain, I can use sound in the left ear, and then sound is typically going to be more like your slow, your rhythmic. And if I want to activate the left side of the brain, I can use sound in my right ear, and I can use a little bit higher functioning, kind of like, more like kind of like a rock or kind of a techno. So those are kind of different ways that you can stimulate, the left side of the brain versus the right.
Yeah. And some criticisms come up too against like that left brain, right brain theory. What would you say to those people that say it's an outdated model or that it's been disproven?
Yeah, I mean, with everything, there's always going to be positive and negatives with everything. There's people, we see this right now currently in politics, and every one of us typically has different types of opinions. So no one's ever going to be right. And I know clinically from what I see in my practice every day, when people fly from all over the world to see me, that, if I have, someone with developmental issues and someone's got speech issues and we start stimulating the left side of the brain, which is where Broca's area is for speech, these patients typically do really well. And then if I have someone who's got this odd kind of different type of posture, or I have this kid who's got really bad behavior problems, we typically stimulate the right side of the brain using certain colors and sound and exercises, and this kid gets really great results. And again, a lot of my work is done off of a lot of the literature behind Dr. Malilo. And then he recently just published a paper with Harvard with McLean Hospital. It's the neurobehavior, where he proved out that brain balance exercises actually can improve a subset of kids with ADHD. And they used what's called a quantum machine or a quotient machine. And again, clinically for me, I do everything diagnostically. So when I get someone that comes in, it's pretty neat. I work with someone called dysautonomia, which is where they they have a hard time regulating their heart rate. And this person could have had a concussion, they could have had a baby and randomly couldn't regulate their heart rate. So I use pulse ox, and you've seen this happen in our practice, is that I can use visual stimulation and I can watch their heart rate go from 120 beats to like 80, 90, or sometimes even 60, 70 beats per minute just by using visual stimulation. So, again, if someone's going to tell me that this stuff doesn't work, then it's like, all right, well, clinically, I know my patients are doing better, and really at the end of the day, it's all about results. I've seen, great results, but again, it's, there's intake forms that you can use that have different characteristics. Now, again, these things haven't been standardized, but we've used a bunch of data, like for example, checking someone's heart rate. You can check someone's balancing coordination. You can check someone's, and again, there's tracking systems out there that do that. And then just watching what happens whenever you use certain types of sensory stimulations. Can it affect someone's sleep? Can it affect someone's digestive system? And I tell people all the time, hey, the entertainment center makes a lot of money off of movies, video games, and music. And so if you're telling me that visual stimulation and sound doesn't have a positive impact on the brain, well then, why do people spend millions of dollars on Super Bowl ads?
Yeah, that's a great point. So with the whole left brain, right brain theory, somebody comes in, they've got this laundry list of complaints, they've been to 24 different doctors. You're looking at somebody, how do you start to decipher neurologically what's going on? How do you tell for somebody if they've got a left brain weakness or a right brain weakness when you're looking at it?
Okay, yeah, well, there's, again, you can use some basic forms just to kind of look at characteristics of the left side of the brain versus the right. So, for example, like a lot of my patients who have an issues like cognitively, those typically, I'll see they typically have like a left brain deficit. If I see someone who, can memorize everything, but these people need to slow down, they're highly motivated. These people typically can have anxiety, but typically that could be a right brain deficit. Then you start getting into looking at, autonomic signs where you can have someone open their mouth and look at their palate. The little uvula that hangs out. And so right next to it, you have these things called brachial arches. And when someone says, they should go up together like this. So if one goes up, the other one stays down, then what happens is the brain ipsilaterally controls the same side. So typically you might say that someone could have a right brain deficit if that soft palate doesn't raise. And then you can look at like the nasolabial folds in people, and you'll typically see like a flatter side on someone's face is indicative of right brain deficit. Then you can look at posture abnormalities. You'll notice that someone could have like their whole arms internally rotated, and their foot will flare out. So there's different type of, again, autonomic functions. Now you can actually start checking people's pupils, how they respond to light, and seeing exactly, what side of the brain is actually deficit. And then there's eye movements. There's an eye movement software program out there. It's called Right Eye. And it's pretty neat because when you track something from left to right, so it's called a pursuit. So if you pursuit to the right and you go really quick to the left, that actually shows you the right frontal lobe function, and then vice versa. So, and there's a couple little, normal functioning, aspects of the brain that you can check people for.
Yeah, good stuff. Because I know a lot of our people at home are going to be wondering, well, hey, what if I have a right brain deficit or a left brain deficit? What would somebody probably be experiencing? Like, would somebody with a right brain deficit be more prone to like depression or anxiety versus a left brain person? What would they be doing?
Yes, so a right brain person you're typically going to see, they're going to be having typically more anxiety. A right brain deficit person, those people typically go to sleep, but then they'll wake up periodically throughout the night. A lot of times you'll see like your engineer will be someone with typically a right brain deficit, meaning that their left side of their brain is typically stronger. And again, it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that we just typically have higher functioning on one side versus the other. Whereas these people, for example, like an engineer, or even a lot of doctors too, sometimes their spouses can say it's so hard to have a conversation with them because, they're always all over the place. I feel like when I talk to them, I have to like chase them. And it's just because their brain's like go, 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 which is the left side of the brain. And then you have like the other side, the right side of your brain, which is going to be where people typically have a right brain deficit. So typically you can see more kind of depression. Have a left brain deficit, you could have more depression. So you'll see like happily, overly motivated people. That's a left brain function. And it's kind of hard when you start looking at left brain function versus a deficit.
Right.
So, and again, I tell parents that, one of the best things, that you can do is read the book Disconnected Kids. If you want to determine whether, left and right brain, and it's broken down so it has different characteristics of the left brain versus the right. And then it even gets down to, from an immune system standpoint. So typically, like your left brain deficit kid are going to be your kids who have chronic ear infections or chronically sick. They're all numerous antibiotics. So the left brain, through research has shown that left brain can actually activate the immune system, and the right brain can actually suppress the immune system. So if you have like a right brain deficit, you typically can see someone can be more prone to having like autoimmune disorders, or might have a lot of digestive food sensitivities, since the right side of the brain is unable to suppress inflammation. So yeah, so those are just kind of some basic little left brain, right brain. So left brain activates the immune system, right brain suppresses the immune system. Good. Left brain's your go, your right brain's your break.
Really critical information right now, especially for everybody out there in this COVID pandemic, as we're all trying to find out how an immune system actually works. So let's switch gears a little bit. I want to jump away from all this heavy analytical stuff. So what really inspires you in practice right now?
Yeah, well, I love people, and the biggest thing for me is to see people suffering, whether it's a kid or it's an adult. And I just felt like God gave me a gift. The main thing is I have a photographic memory, so I memorize a lot of stuff. And so I memorize, biochemical pathways in the nervous system and all the neurological pathways. And so really what inspires me is people, man. And just if people are going to fly and come see me, one that's very rewarding for me, knowing that people fly from, Australia to come and see me. And, just watching these parents and how, hearing their story, how they've been all over the world and they've been to all these different doctors and they just want their kid back, or they just want to be able to, their kid to say mom, or they just want to be able to go to a restaurant without someone have a panic attack. Just those kind of cases that people feel kind of like hopeless, and that's kind of, I feel like my job is to instill and inspire hope with people, is that I do feel that there's, with the nervous system, I've seen all kinds of really cool stuff, I don't think anything's impossible. And again, it's crazy some of the stuff that I've seen happen. I didn't even realize that, certain things were capable. For example, someone with, almost a complete, incomplete spinal cord injury, this person started moving their feet and walking, which was, really cool to witness. And, they were told after 2 years of rehab, hey, look, you're never going to walk again. And then I watched this person being able to walk. So yeah, it's just, anybody who's going to really, who has some sort of deficit challenge and are struggling. And I feel like I'm kind of that kind of middleman where I can really take someone and really just, I'm very motivated, very positive person, but I just want to be that person just to keep people going. And, as long as God keeps me here, I want to just be that. It's just helping really, just give people hope and just keep helping, educate people. I feel like that's a big thing too, is just people aren't educated. I think even with this COVID stuff is that, previous to this stuff is that people should have been, watching what they eat. People should be exercising. People should be drinking water. People should be washing their hands before they eat. And I think that hopefully of all this stuff, it brings awareness that people really need to really kind of take control of their own health. And I felt like, people don't do that because we live in this fast-paced lifestyle that people just constantly, they're pressed for stuff. So that, distorts family values. And that, again, creates social issues, which create anxiety. So, yeah, I just want to hopefully just give people hope and educate them.
Yeah. Well, doctor means teacher, right? Love that.
Absolutely.
Love that. And, I 100% agree, especially hopefully coming out of this now, people really get an idea that their health is your responsibility. It's nobody else's. And how crazy some of the actions we've taken in the past have been, and just really how ill thought out they are. And moving forward, let's take greater responsibility, like you said. Let's wash our hands. Let's eat good, healthy foods. Let's consider what's actually being put on the foods and in the foods. And let's really look at, hey, how are we functioning? One, neurologically, but also emotionally, mentally, and on all levels as a human being.
Absolutely.
So you talk about a lot of people flying into Lake Charles, Louisiana, which if anybody doesn't know where that's at, it's 2 hours east of Houston? 3 hours?
Yep, 2 hours. So I'm just directly between 2 hours between Houston, 2 hours between Baton Rouge. So typically people fly in, they'll either fly to Houston, connect and fly to Lake Charles. We can fly to Lafayette or Baton Rouge. And again, I'm in this area because that's where I'm from. But yeah, so Lake Charles, Louisiana is where my practice is.
And I've been there. It's not a big town by any means. So how are you making a global impact from Lake Charles and affecting the whole world?
Yeah, well, it goes back to, I'm a very big fan of personal development. And, I set goals earlier on that, I didn't want to limit myself and I didn't want to just be in one place. And then that's kind of, NeuroSage was kind of designed to help with, training clinicians on how to utilize, part of the science and, the results we're getting in our clinic. So we do have, practitioners all over the world that use our software program. And then I get a chance to teach with Dr. Robert Lilo. So he's brought me on board, and he's given me the opportunity to have a really cool speaking platform to where right now I currently speak in Atlanta to a bunch of U.S. doctors. And then we were lecturing overseas. So we've lectured in Barcelona. I'm lecturing this past, in October at the University of Sorbonne in Paris. And then now we also have the clinic in Abu Dhabi being built out. And then I have another practice. We're building a clinic out right now for 2021. It's going to be in the United Kingdom. So, I have, doctors all over the world now that are going our, Lilo method. They're utilizing NeuroSage. And it's kind of cool because a trickle effect that, when I wake up in the morning, people in Australia are getting NeuroSage, which is, pretty neat that while I'm sleeping, people are still actually getting a chance to use something I was able to co-develop.
That's really cool. Can you talk anything about the clinics that are in Abu Dhabi and going to be in the UK? I don't know what you can share, what you can't, since they're currently in development. But what can you share about those clinics for those that are there?
Yeah, well, the clinic we have in Abu Dhabi is really, really, really awesome, state-of-the-art clinic. We're encompassing everything, and I mean everything as in like the whole approach, checking people. It's an academic learning center. It's going to be in Abu Dhabi, near Al Reem Island. So the clinic we were supposed to shoot and open up in March. April with this COVID stuff, it's kind of put us in a delay. So we're hopefully shooting for September to get this thing up and running. And then I'm working with a functional neurology practitioner in the UK right now. And Dr. Brandon Crawford and I, as well as, one of the patients who actually flew to see both of us, his mom, so we actually, formulated, a business. And, we're trying to get this clinic up and running. So right now we're going through the whole framework where, just writing all the protocols, getting all the equipment, making sure all the licenses and stuff are going to be put. So again, in Abu Dhabi, we're really kind of waiting on the government to finally give us the clear so we can, open. And then in the UK, 2021, we're going to be launching, really awesome academic learning center that's going to encompass, childhood development, functional neurology, and functional medicine and nutrition.
That's awesome. Just moving and shaking all over the place. So beyond 2021, what plans do you have for the future? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, well, I set my goals high. So, I'd like to have at least personally have over 100 clinics, international, which, I think that's easily attainable. And then, my goal from NeuroSage is to have, I'd like to have about 100,000 practitioners utilizing NeuroSage, either at the hospitals, nursing homes, academic learning centers, professional organization. And then, really we're going to pursue right now, we actually are starting right now with this FDA, project, and there's some stuff with computer software programs. So we're in the works of, getting some FDA, approval with that. So right now our whole focus is mainly, international. And just currently just teaching more people and then expanding my practice. I'm actually, in the process of taking my private practice and expanding it through Louisiana with different types of clinics. And again, trying to integrate physical therapy, as well as chiropractic. So that's kind of where I see it, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something to aspire to, and I love that. Last question for you, Doc. So who right now, we've talked a lot about Dr. Lilo, but other people, who do you look up to as heroes or as mentors?
Yeah, so again, first guy, from a mentor standpoint, Dr. Lilo's been phenomenal with just, setting a foundation, not only from a research and clinical standpoint, from a business standpoint. My wife, wife's an awesome champion. I travel a lot, and I have a little daughter, and wife's just been phenomenal. Just constantly, being there whenever I'm not there. And then my parents too. My dad said, earlier on taught me about personal development, setting goals, and it's kind of amazing that when I was a little kid, somebody to sit down and write down, everything that I was going to accomplish. And, I was playing the World Series, playing college baseball, be a doctor. And, it's neat because I was able to check off all those lists. And still to this day, I set goals. So, yeah, man, from a mentor standpoint, Dr. Lito's been a huge influence. My wife, my parents. And yeah, my heroes are mainly my kids. So my little daughter is definitely my little hero. She's still a little hard, and then now I have a little boy due here in August, so yeah. I'll have two little heroes.
I think we see her peeking over your shoulder there on the video. Right on. So, Doc, we talked a lot about everything that you're doing and everything that's going on. So, if somebody wants to see you in practice, how do they get a hold of you? How can they contact you?
Yeah, so it's our website is just if you just type in the letter uperformance.com. So uperformance.com is a great way that someone can go there. They can reach out, call us. Our office number is 337-421-0010. And then people that follow, if you're on social media, we have a very large Facebook page. Our clinic is called Ultimate Performance Chiro and Rehab. And then personally, my Instagram page, which is just Dr. Daigle DC. I do a lot of stuff on Instagram. I put a lot of videos on how to do, assessment for primitive reflexes, to talking about, diet, nutrition. So, Instagram, which is pretty neat, but most people actually find me through Instagram, just because we have, over 30-some thousand followers. And yeah, people are always comment and share it, and people flying based off of, Instagram.
Yeah. And for those that can't see the video out there, it's spelled Dr. D-R-D-A-I-G-L-E D-C.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, Doc. Anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we sign off?
I just said earlier, man, the main thing is if you do have someone and you're struggling, you have a kid, and just, Disconnected Kids is a phenomenal book, highly recommended by Dr. Robert Malilo. Read that book. If you're facing any type of health challenges, I'm a big fan personally of just, looking into foods and diet, looking into vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Again, even running something like a stool sample, making sure that your gut, you don't have any bacterial overgrowth or something like that. And then, again, never underestimate things. For example, mold. If you had an old house or you pressure washed your fence or, you get headaches when you go to your work and you have work in an old abandoned building, sometimes mold could be a contributing factor. So, yeah, just, primitive reflexes, and make sure you get the right testing and never give up.
Wise words at the end. Never give up. There's always something that can be done. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Dr. Kyle Daigle for joining us today and sharing all this wonderful wisdom, sharing about the NeuroSage platform. This is something that we utilize in our office here in Denver at Wild and Precious Optimal Living. So I wanted to bring him on just to really get the big brain behind this. What I think is revolutionary technology. I definitely agree that it's going to change the world. I've already seen it change people's lives in our practice, and without a doubt, it's going to change the face of healthcare. So again, if you're in the Denver area, if you're someone who's struggling, who's suffering, and looking for answers and have lost hope, please contact us, Wild and Precious Optimal Living, 720-667-3650. Again, thank you to Dr. Kyle for joining us today, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, Dr. Sam.
Thank you. Give me just a second,